What's going on? Welcome to the Score Fantasy Basketball Podcast. I'm Waiver Wire Queen. This week, we are going to talk about some more players you should add via the waiver wire in fantasy basketball. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can see more great content like this. And if you enjoy listening to the podcast, check us out on all major podcasting platforms. We have more great content to help you throughout the season in fantasy basketball. Let's jump right into it. We're going to talk about more players you should target via the waiver wire this week. Now, KD is out indefinitely. I'll tell you up front, I would wait and see before I consider adding anyone on BK because the players so far that have taken on KD's minutes have been inconsistent. You've heard some different names out there. I would kind of wait and see who is truly going to step up and really take on that role. Obviously, if you have KD, you already know you're not going to find KD production on the waiver wire, maybe in a trade. However, you won't find that type of production. He's a top 5 player in fantasy, top 2 in regards to best player in the NBA and in the world. So that type of production is irreplaceable, but you can find someone who can help you to kind of alleviate the pain because, damn it, KD out indefinitely is painful. DeAndre Hunter, guard / forward with the Atlanta Hawks. He's rostered in 43% of Yahoo leagues. He is getting between 16 and 19 fantasy points on a nightly basis. He's currently averaging over 11 points per game, 2.5 rebounds per game. He is a great defender, which means he's going to help you with steals and rebounds, and he should shoot a solid percentage from the field. The biggest issue with him is his health. Nonetheless, opportunity is there. Cam has left the building via a trade, and so Hunter is back, and he should see those minutes, and he has been, and he's been scoring the ball. The biggest issue is the injuries. He is always hurt, so the question is, how long do you have Hunter? Can you afford to drop another player who's producing to pick up Hunter just to have to, whether you drop him or place him on IL because he gets hurt again? I'm hoping that he's past that. But nonetheless, that is the only concern I would have with DeAndre Hunter. He gets hurt all the time. You guys know how it is. But nonetheless, opportunity is key. It is very important, and he has the opportunity. Cam, again, is no longer playing for the Hawks. The biggest issue with the Hawks to me this season is they have too many players who play the same damn position. But Hunter is the starter, and he's going to get every opportunity to succeed and play at a high level. Hopefully he'll stay healthy. Marcus Morris is playing his tail off right now for the Clippers. Y'all, I mean, damn. How many more injuries can the Clippers take? I'm just saying, your top 2 players are out. I mean, Paul George was having one of his best seasons statistically. And Kawhi, he's been out since the playoffs last year. Nonetheless, they've been trying to find players who have been consistent. Most of the players have been inconsistent or in and out of the lineup due to various reasons. Marcus Morris is the next man up, and he is making the most of his opportunity. Man went down. He's been very inconsistent this year, so he's a player that I would stay away from unless he can show some consistency. Right now, again, Morris is the guy who has been consistent. On the season, he's averaging 16 points, 4.9 rebounds, and he's going to play solid defense, and he should shoot a solid percentage from the field for you. He has been averaging between 24 and 26 fantasy points on a nightly basis. He's a player that, again, is going to score the ball and probably get you some rebounds. And he has been identified and tabbed as a forward / center. So if you need him to play forward, you can utilize him in that roster spot or center. Either way, he should be able to help your team going forward until Paul George returns, because then I'll say that his minutes will decrease. Zubac has been as well. So with the Clippers, some of these players is a crapshoot. Again, right now, Morris is the next best thing for the Clippers. And so for us, we want in on whoever is playing well. We don't care if they play well for 2 games. We will utilize them. And right now he's playing well. But always remember, Once he falls off, move on from him and understand. Don't wait until he falls off to end up starting him that last game and then, you lose points or miss out on somebody better. You got to be able to spot these things in advance. And I know that is hard, but again, right now, Morris is definitely a player who can help your team. Let's talk about Jae'Sean Tate with the Houston Rockets. Been playing very well throughout this season. You've had some players up and down. They have a very young team, and there have been players who have been in and out of the lineup for an extended period of time. He's been very consistent. He's rostered in over 72% of leagues, averaging 12.5 points per game, almost 6 rebounds per game, and 3 assists. Very good ad. Even though he's rostered at 70%, I was able to pick him up in another league to help me out last week. So I'm saying, even though it's at 70%, just kind of check for him and see if you can pick him up. And that's in the Yahoo League. He's rostered much less in the ESPN League. So you have a higher probability if you're using ESPN or Sleeper. He's definitely available. Let's talk about one of my favorites, just because he's a Bull, Coby White. Yes, y'all, that's right, Coby White. He has an opportunity. You got LaVine out. We'll have to see what's going on with that knee. I want them to take a conservative approach. As a Bulls fan, I can't afford to have LaVine out for an extended period of time this year or for the season or the playoffs. So hopefully they take the conservative approach, which means White has opportunity. A lot of players are out or injured with the Bulls, so it's next man up in some of these roles. You see Ball was out the other game, and White filled in really well. And Ayo played very well as well. But nonetheless, White right now is a player to look at, and Caruso once he returns. And I think Caruso will be the better ad long term once he returns, because he also is going to be a better defender than White. But White right now rostered in over 50% of Yahoo leagues, which means he is still 50% available out there. He's averaging between 18 and 20 fantasy points on a nightly basis, and he's averaging 12.5 points on the season. All you look for with Coby White is scoring. So don't expect him to get out here and have a whole bunch of assists, steals, rebounds. He's going to score the ball when given the opportunity. So he is strictly available and should only be added in a points-based league. He's not worth adding in a categories-based league, in my opinion. So don't waste your time there, because he's not really bringing much to the table in other categories. Sure, he may score points, but if you got somebody else who's stuffing the stats sheet, and then you have White who's only getting you, 14, 15 points, better suited in a points-based league. Otto Porter, I talked about him a bit on Saturday as another player to consider adding. He has been very consistent for the Warriors. They have players who are in and out of the lineup due to various reasons, and he is one of the players who have been in a rotation pretty much all season, whether that is coming off the bench or starting, and he has played very, very well. Right now, he is out, but nonetheless, he still has a role, and you should be looking at him as a player to add, especially if you're in a deep league. If you're in a deep league, he should definitely be on your radar, because he's played very well and he's going to continue to get the opportunity. Most people will look at it as, well, Clay's back, you got Steph, Draymond, you have a lot of players, a lot of mouths to feed. He can play with them, whether that is at the center spot, power forward spot, or if they want to take a chance and throw him in at the guard spot, he will be able to help them out in so many different positions that there is definitely opportunity for him. And again, he has made the most of that when he's played, averaging over 8 points per game, 5.2 rebounds, 1.1 steals on a season. So again, he's going to score the ball, rebound the ball, and he's going to play a little defense to get you a steal. So that is a player that I would want coming off my bench, especially during these times where players are out due to various issues. He's kind of in that role that Oubre is for the Hornets. Both of these guys are coming off the bench, energy, scoring, rebounding, doing a bunch of different things, and are and have been called upon, I'll say, to start for various periods of time due to several reasons. So Porter, once he returns, is a must add, in my opinion, because he brings so much versatility to the table, especially in a deep league. He's going to play the guard spot, forward. Hell, they may slide him in at center. So you have a lot of different options with him, and you already know that he should produce for your team in multiple categories. And in the points-based league, that can quickly turn into 20 plus points on a nightly basis. So check for him. One of my favorites, I've been talking about him for several weeks, and he's going to continue to be on my radar because he's not rostered as high as he should be. Alec Burks. And I'll say this, he had a bad game today, but we don't all have great games. And that should not stop you from picking him up, because right now you got Kimba out, Rose out, Cam out. No telling what kind of role Cam will have on a Tibbs team, and it won't be at the guard spot, right? You'll pretty much see Burks playing maybe the point, and maybe Reddish put him in there he can play the 4 spot, in my opinion, or the 3. So whatever forward spot Reddish can play, and maybe periodically at the guard spot. But when you have Burks playing as well as he has this season, he's not going to lose minutes to Cam once he joins the Knicks. But nonetheless, Burks is only rostered in 59% of leagues, and that is, to me, not high enough for what he has been doing this season. He's going to shoot a good percentage from the field. He's averaging over 11 points per game, 4.6 rebounds. He's going to play very well, and the opportunity is there. Again, Tibbs trusts certain players, and when those players are no longer available to you, like Rose, he's not available to Tibbs, and there's other players on the team, you're like, ooh, I really don't trust him, but Burks has played very well. I will say that Tibbs trusts Burks. So pick him up, and you'll be all right with it. And again, had a bad game today, but still a great option for your team. No way should he be on waivers unless you are playing in a league that may have 8 or less teams. If you are in a deep league, there's no way in hell Burks should just be sitting there on your waiver wire waiting for you to pick him up, because you know what? You're going to procrastinate and wait, and if someone else is going to jump you and pick him up, and then you're going to be like, damn, I really wish I would have made the move to pick him up sooner. Pick him up. He's going to help your team. Trust me, especially if you are missing some players due to various reasons. COVID protocol, injuries, load management, several reasons why you may be missing players, or you just may have somebody who's not playing well enough to take up a roster spot. And that's what you also have to look at as well. It's not just about COVID protocol, injuries, load management. It's about, maybe I drafted this player and they have been stinking it up all year. Well, don't be attached to a player who's stinking it up for you all year, unless it's one of your top dogs. Then you can consider trying to trade them. But if it's a player you drafted late and they have been stinking it up and you expected them to play well and they haven't lived up to your expectations, get rid of them. Pick up Burks. Pick up someone else who will help your team out this season or even this week. Take it one game at a time, like I'm doing. Or if you cannot see yourself doing it one game at a time, take it for that matchup and understand that, hey, Burks will help your team. Half a loaf's better than no loaf. And again, that really translates to some points is better than no points. It's nothing like trusting a player who hasn't been playing well all season and they get in there and they stink it up. And you see someone like Burks who has 30 points on waivers and you're like, damn, I should have made the move. Pick up Burks, guys. Stop playing around. I'm mentioning Anfernee Simons again because I've mentioned him a few. His rostered percentage has gone up drastically. Dame is out. McCollum is back. Shockingly, I'm very shocked to see that. But nonetheless, it's going to be McCollum and Simons. So although McCollum will probably take the lead in scoring for that team, unless he's on some type of restriction, Simons will have a role and he will play very well, over 50 fantasy points the other night. He's rostered in over 75% of leagues, which still means he is available. He is available in one of my leagues and sleeper. So I am definitely putting a claim for him because he really can help my team right now. I have some players who are out and some players who are struggling. So I'm looking at my roster like, okay, you've been taking up a lot of space for no reason. Right now, Simons is a guy that I want. Okay, opportunity is here, and he is playing very, very well. He is a scoring 2.6 rebounds. Understand, scoring guard, a horrible percentage on a nightly basis. He's still going to get you the points that you need because he's a scoring guard. He has a scoring mentality. Scorer's mentality, y'all. Understand that. Again, I'll say it again. Scoring guard, which means he's going to score the hell out of the ball. So guess what? If there is a slim chance that he is available in your league, you'll pick him up. Okay? Pick him up, pick him up, pick him up. Yeah. Let's talk about Hamidou Diallo, guard / forward with the Pistons. He's rostered in 46% of Yahoo leagues. He is available in sleeper as well. I had the opportunity to pick him up in one of my sleeper leagues. I'm playing in 2 sleeper leagues, and I picked him up in one. And I don't want to have him in too many leagues because I'm kind of want to have some a different roster in my various leagues. Nonetheless, he's playing very well. He's been playing very well for several games. Grant is on his way back, so he may take a little hit, but Grant may be on the move in the trade. So continue to play Diallo if you can. If you can pick him up tonight, play him, okay? He's been averaging between 20 and 22 fantasy points, 10.7 points per game, a little over 4 rebounds, and he's going to get you at least 1 steal per game. The biggest thing about him is he plays really good defense for a young player. And if nothing else, he's going to rebound the ball and get you some steals. Think about it. He's averaging 10.7 points per game. So that means he has come a long way with his scoring. So just know that he's going to do a little bit of everything for your team. And that can equate to 24 points very quickly in fantasy basketball. So if you can pick him up and use him, even if it's just for another week or two, do so. But if Grant is traded, then you already know that he's definitely going to be a long-term situation. Let's talk about Thomas Bryant. Thomas Bryant, center with the Wizards. He had a breakout season last year, averaging 14.3 points, 6.1 rebounds per game. Bryant's out most of the season last year and most of the season this year with a knee injury. He has returned. He's on a minutes restriction. You've seen early on in those first few games, didn't play a lot of minutes, didn't have a large impact. Played very well today, and he got, 15 points in limited minutes. He, to me, is their best player at the center position. I know Gafford has played very well. You know, I'm a Bulls fan, and I really love what Gafford was bringing to the table. Just wasn't given much of an opportunity. But Gafford may take a big hit once Bryant's minutes start to increase. Okay. Harold will take a hit as well. They got a lot of players that play the same position out there in Washington, so they're going to have to really consider and think about what they're going to do. I thought that Kuzma would take a hit, but after the way he's been playing the last few games, I don't know about Rui Hachimura cutting it to his minutes, but hey, Kyle was like, ooh, I got to step it up because I cannot afford someone to take my minutes in my spot. But even Roy, you're starting to see his minutes increase a bit, and they're both slowly working their way back into basketball shape and conditioning and minutes. So you're starting to see those minutes increase. Bryant is rostered at 18% in leagues. He's a center. If he is able to give you 15 points in 12 minutes, that is great value. Just imagine what he will do for your team once he starts to see more minutes. If he plays 20 minutes a game for the rest of the season, I think he'll be very effective and help your team. So he's a player in a deep league. If you can afford to add him now. Don't wait till once his minutes start to increase. And now he's back to averaging his 14.67 rebounds per game. And now you want to rush and at him because you may realize that you want to rush and at him, but he's already gone. So if you can afford to stash him on your bench, do so. More players are starting to come back and get out of the protocol. Obviously, there are several players still in there. However, it's not as bad as it was a few weeks ago. So if you can afford to add him at the end of your bench and take a chance on him because it will pay off at some point this season, then you need to do so now and not wait. Rui Hachimura, forward with the Wizards, I talked about him on Saturday. He is starting to see his minutes increase slowly. He's only been back a few games. He's rostered in 15% of Yahoo leagues. His season statistics from last year, 13.8 points, 5.5 rebounds. Thought at some point, and it still may happen, that he was going to cut into Kyle Kuzma's minutes. Well, Kyle Kuzma, as like I said earlier, has been playing very well. Okay, over 40-something fantasy points the other night, over 50 fantasy points. Okay, so these last few games, he's been really stepping it up. I think there is room for both of those guys to play a good amount of minutes and still not hurt their value, but see good value from both players. It may hurt Kuzma's value a little bit, but they invested a lot in both players. Obviously, they drafted Hachimura, so he's going to get his opportunity to play as the season goes on, and maybe they'll be playing a lineup where both of them are out there, and there's nothing wrong with that because I do feel like both of them should be over Harrell. I just think so, and even Bryant should be over him as well. Let's talk about Trey Lyles, forward/center with the Pistons. He's been playing very, very well for several games now. The last 5 games, as you can see, he's been very, very good, and he's a player who has been consistent. I still think it's a wait-and-see approach before I say he's a long-term add. Again, we have to see what they do with Grant. Okay, Stewart is still in the mix. And you already know once Kelly come back, he's in the mix, but he's been hurt a lot, in and out of the lineup. So we'll have to wait and see. There are a lot of factors to determine his long-term value. And again, right now, he has current value. So with Lyles, only worry about his value today or tomorrow. Don't worry about 2 weeks from now because, again, so many players who play the same position, his value will most likely take a hit. Right now, he's rostered in 28% of Yahoo leagues, averaging between 18 and 20 fantasy points on the season. Statistics, 9.6 points per game and 4.8 rebounds, which is really good. It's going to shoot a solid percentage from the field. So that's a really good situation to be in if you can't pick him up. So go on and pick him up. Okay, Dillon Brooks, he's injured right now. He is out. He's rostered in 59% of leagues. He can play the guard or the 4 spot. So if you can pick him up, do so. He's averaging between 27 and 30 fantasy points, 18.4 points per game, 3 rebounds. Remember, he's a guard that's going to score the ball. Score. That is what he does. He's a scorer. Understand why I'm mentioning him, because there are some managers, their strategy is, and it could be because the way the roster was designed by the commissioner, that they may have to drop a player like Brooks. In the league that I'm in, I wouldn't drop a player like Brooks because there are IL slots, and I'll just have to take the hit because I don't want someone else that I'm going to end up playing against to end up picking him up. But understand, there are some managers who have no choice but to drop players, add players when they're injured. And then there just may be some managers, their strategy is, I'm going to add a player, drop a player, add a player, drop a player. I'm not a fan of that strategy, but it's their strategy. This is why a lot of leagues have the limits on your transactions, which is very, very good. Some people do take advantage of that, and it can hurt the opponent. However, you just got to make sure you observe and watch who you're playing and understand what type of approach they take. But I say this to say is, again, there are managers who are dropping players, some for various reasons. They may be desperate and they have no choice. You know, my experience is right now is I have a lot of players who are out, but I am trying to be patient and not drop a really good player so someone else can pick them up because they will be gone. So I've taken a hit over the last few games, well, the last few weeks, but now my players are starting to get healthy and we're going to make a nice run. Again, I'll say this again. If there are players like Brooks that's available on waivers and you can pick him up and stash him on your bench, with I don't care how deep the league is, 10 teams, 12, 14, pick him up and just stash him on your bench. If you are in a league that has IL slots, pick him up and just place him in one of those slots, because once he comes back, he's going to be a very valuable player to your team. You don't allow someone to leave 28, 29, 30 fantasy points in a points-based league out there on waivers. You make them feel it. You make them pay for it, because some people think, well, okay, no one's going to see, no one's going to know. They don't really know about the player. No, we know about the player, and we're not going to wait to give you that opportunity to redeem yourself from making a bad decision, because to me, him being on waivers is a bad decision, especially if you're picking him up for a player that does not have long-term value. Again, you got to understand, when you're dropping players, I'm not going to drop a player for one night. Like, oh, he's great for one night to release Brooks. It doesn't make sense long-term, and it's going to hurt your team. But again, everybody has their strategy and their plan when they're playing daily and weekly. Again, check and see if there are players out there who have no business being on waivers, because if they have no business being on waivers, we want to be all in their business and pick them up, y'all. Okay, I'll give you an example. And I don't understand this. This is my league that I'm running, and I have 4 IL slots, and it's a Yahoo league, and I have 2 regular IL, and then I have the 2 IL plus slots. And somebody dropped CJ McCollum, and I'm like thinking, like, what the hell is going on out here? I understand he was supposed to be out indefinitely. Nonetheless, I have 4 IL slots for you to help you with injuries and everything else. So they dropped him. And then I'm thinking, like, well, I know what's going on, and I know, oh my God, he's going to be coming back. So I snatched him up immediately. And now this is a potential player who's going to be in my starting rotation. There should never be a situation, unless they are done for the season. I don't even do that when a player is out for the season, because I'm going to put them in IL unless I just have nobody. Everybody's injured, and I have no choice. But if you have a player who's out for the season, just put him in IL, okay? Who the hell would drop KD just because he's going to be out indefinitely? That indefinitely, once they do more imaging, may turn into a few games. CJ McCollum, that's a player that I would just take the hit. He's going to be on my bench because he's a player I drafted to start for my team. I'm not going to take a crazy chance and release him like that, because a player like Waiver Wire Queen is going to make you feel that bad decision and pick him up. And that's what you have to do. You don't let a person off the hook and let him pick him back up. No, you want to drop a top player, a really good player, I'm going to make you feel it, and I'm going to pick him up. And although he's been very inconsistent this season, you all know what McCollum is capable of doing. And we're going to see what he does, y'all. Okay? Now, here's some other players I talked about on Saturday that you can consider adding. And I've been talking about some of these guys the last few weeks. Malik Monk has been playing very well this season. He is shooting over 38, 39% from threes, which is really good. So if he's available, still pick him up. He's available in one of my sleeper leagues. I'm considering adding him, but I'm still kind of looking at some things. Kevin Looney has been playing very well. Again, just kind of be careful with that, because they have a whole lot of players. And again, once Wiseman returns, his role may decrease a little bit. But right now, Looney is playing very well. Just know with Looney, he's going to rebound the hell out the ball. So if you need a center to help you one game in a categories-based league, and you need rebounds, and you don't have anyone, and Looney is out there, he'll get you the damn rebound. So check for Looney. Darius Bazley, I talked about him early on in the season. With him, he's not going to shoot a good percentage from the field. He's a volume shooter. He's going to rebound the ball, 6-7 rebounds a game, and he's going to score, but his shooting percentage is not going to be good enough to where you're going to want to utilize his services in the categories, basically, because he's going to hurt your field goal percentage. So he's not a player I would look to in a categories-based league. Definitely in a points-based league. And again, his value is going to be as good as his playing time. Another player to look for and check for is Amir Coffey with the Clippers. He has taken over that role. Man hasn't been playing well, so Coffey has stepped up and showed out and is playing consistent basketball. I talked about him Saturday. The last few games, 16 points, 20 points. Okay, he had a game when he had 5 points. All right, it happens. 18, 21. He's getting assists. He's rebounding the ball. He's getting some steals. He had a game where he had 4 steals. So he has been playing very well. They've been playing him at the point guard, the shooting guard, and the small forward spot. He's 6'7". And if you can slot somebody in who's 6'7" at the point guard spot, or just even in the backcourt, then you've got a really good situation going. And his field goal percentages have been pretty decent, with the exception of the game where he only scored 5 points. He was 2 for 7. 7 shots is not a lot for someone you are relying on to start, but nonetheless, very, very good ad. If you haven't picked him up, go on and pick him up. Nicholas Claxton, although he has missed the last 4 games, if he returns, he's going to be a very good, he's going to be a great ad, because you, again, don't know if and when KD is going to return. I'm hoping that KD will come back soon, but I hate the term indefinitely, because it just sounds like it ain't going to happen this year. I'm hoping that indefinitely will end up turning into something like, 4 to 6 weeks, hopefully. But the key for BK outside of fantasy is to making sure that KD is available for the playoffs. They don't care about fantasy world or these regular season games, because they still have Harden, and then you got Kyrie part-time. So they still should be able to play well enough to win games and be competitive to get them to the postseason, and hopefully KD will return. They're going to take a conservative approach and make sure that if KD can return, it's near the playoffs, so he is healthy enough to play. Okay, and so that's where Claxton will come into play. And if he can come back from whatever's going on with his knee, because he's been dealing with the knee issue, he's going to have great value. He was playing very well, very, very well. He was a player that I had on my list as a breakout player this year. Still has that opportunity, especially if he returns and KD isn't playing. You figure they still have Blake, they have some veterans who are not going to play a lot of minutes, and they're going to need Claxton's young legs to get up in there and play well. He's very, very good. You was able to see some of that last season. Players who are falling off, and they falling like this, and you need to move on from them ASAP. Kevin Love, he hasn't been playing as well of late, and you know what you need to do. Move on from him, because there are players out there in waivers who are playing much better. And then you got marketing back in the mix. They're having all of their players get back in the mix, and I understand it, okay? Hell, they are a playoff team this year. Otherwise, I would say the Cavs would be looking to move on from Love, but since they are in the mix with the playoffs, I do consider him a player who's in the rotation and will stay with that team, but his stats are going down, so he's not producing statistically at a level to where I would say keep him when there are players on waivers who are producing at a higher rate and helping your team, while Love is kind of falling off. He's going down, so move on. Monte Morris, being out for several games from being in the protocol, he hasn't really gotten back to that form. He was having a hell of a season. Maybe in a few weeks he'll get there. Right now, he's just not there. I don't know if it's conditioning or what the hell it is, but him and Facundo have been splitting minutes. Facundo stunk it up today. I talked about Facundo on Saturday. Stunk it up today, but if you still want to take a chance on him or Monty, that is fine. Right now, with Monty continuing to kind of be very inconsistent, Facundo may be the better ad short term. Monty is probably going to be the better long-term ad if he can get it together. Right now, I think y'all should just stay away from both of these guys, because, again, Monty being very inconsistent, and Facundo, he had a very bad game today, but there are better players you can look to on waivers. Also, Rondo, once he returns, is dealing with a hamstring injury. He's taken on that Rubio role. And again, with Rondo, he's going to score some points, maybe not at a high rate, but he will score the ball. He's going to rebound the ball. He's going to get some steals, and he's going to do what? Get you some assists. So he's going to be a stat stuffer at a lower rate than what Rubio was doing, but still good production, but just kind of check for him. Daniel Gafford talked about the Wizards and all of the players they have that play the same role. Bryant is back. Gafford already is starting to take a hit and see some type of decrease in his minutes. So kind of be careful with that. Be mindful of Bam's return. He may return tonight. If he does, this is going to hurt Amir Ute7's value on a whole nother level. I know y'all out there loving on Amir like, oh my God, that's the player of the year in free agency. Well, guess what? Bam's going to come back. If Bam's on a minutes restriction, Amir will obviously still have a role, a really good role. I do feel like he should have a role going forward, maybe coming off the bench, playing a certain amount of minutes per game. And let's see if he can produce a limited time. There are centers, there are players who can produce with limited playing time. Let's see what he can do. But you need to monitor that situation. Do not get caught up with the fact that he was producing all these rebounds and scoring the ball all the last several games, because guess what? Once Bam returns, who do you think they playing? Especially if Bam's not on a minutes restriction. They going with Bam. So you got to do what you got to do and move on from it. All right, y'all. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you enjoy the podcast and want to listen to more great content from the Score Fantasy Basketball Podcast, make sure you check us out on all major podcasting hosting platforms, Spotify, Google, Apple. We are out here in these fantasy basketball streets. We are everywhere, and we have some really good content coming out for you later on this week. Y'all have a great week. Peace.
Thanks for listening to The Score Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to The Score for more fun and great advice on how to win at fantasy basketball. And if you've got comments or questions about The Score, send them to waiverwirequeen@gmail.com. The Score.